Hey, my name is Lyndon Trail Sr., and I'm going to be your social worker who primarily works with veterans and their families. Before we get into what's brought you in today, I want to spend a few minutes talking about something that's really important when we're beginning our social work relationship, and that's confidentiality. I know that coming to talk with someone about personal experiences can be difficult, particularly when those experiences involve your military service, your family, your relationships, or just plain old mental health. So, I want to understand from you the beginning of what you can expect from me and what the limits of confidentiality truly are. In general, what you tell me during our sessions is private and confidential. That means I'm not going to take what you told me here today and share it with your spouse. I wouldn't share it with your friends. I'm not going to share it with your coworkers. I'm not going to share it with your former unit or other people simply because they want to know what we've discussed in this session. Your privacy is important, and protecting your information is part of my professional responsibility. If we're meeting through telehealth, I'll also take reasonable steps to make sure that we're communicating in a private environment, as well as your information being protected at all times. At the same time, I want to be very clear with you that confidentiality does have limits. I don't want you to find that out later, after you've already shared something difficult with me. You deserve to know those limits before we begin and before you start sharing with me in these sessions. There are certain situations where I may be required by law or by my professional responsibilities to disclose information that you've shared with me. This is because confidentiality has certain limits. For example, if you tell me that you're at risk of or imminent risk or harming yourself, I may need to take steps to help protect you. Similarly, if you tell me that you're planning to seriously harm another human being and or person, there may be circumstances where I have a responsibility to take action to protect that person and others. That doesn't mean that every time you tell me you're angry, depressed, frustrated, or having a difficult day, I'm going to contact somebody. It doesn't work that way. It means that when there is a serious safety concern, I may have responsibilities that require me to act. Another important exception involves suspected abuse and or neglect, particularly involving children or other individuals who are protected under applicable reporting laws. If I become aware of information that I'm legally required to report, I would have to make that report to the appropriate authorities. There may also be situations involving a court order or other legal requirement where information has to be disclosed. If something like that were to happen, I would explain the situation to you beforehand and involve you in the process as much as I'm legally and ethically able to. I also want to acknowledge something that I think is particularly important when working with veterans. You may have some concerns about what happens if you tell me that you're struggling. Maybe you're worried talking about depression, anxiety, trauma, substance abuse, or problems at home or difficulties adjusting to civilian life could somehow affect your reputation or other parts of your life. I personally don't want you to feel like you have to hide any of those things from me. My role isn't to judge you for what you've experienced or for asking for help. And because I have been around people with a military background as well and who have served, I understand why trust can matter so much when you're talking about those experiences that you may not have discussed with many people. But I also don't want to give you a false sense of security either. My responsibility is to be as honest with you about both your privacy and the situations where confidentiality may have to be broken. Now, on to client participation and informed consent. This is something else I want to speak about. You also have the right to ask questions. If you're unsure about whether something you want to tell me would remain confidential, you can ask before you even disclose the information. For example, you can say something as simple as, hey, if I tell you this is going on, which will ensure that we discuss only what you feel comfortable sharing, as making an informed decision on what you want to communicate is very crucial to informed consent. So, before we move forward, I want to make sure I've explained everything clearly. You can ask me about confidentiality at any point during our work together, during any session. My goal ultimately is to create a space where you can be honest about what you're experiencing without feeling judged. And with that said, I also want to make sure you understand the limits and the boundaries around informed consent and participation before we progress. This way, we can create a good rapport and move forward. In conclusion, thank you for taking the time to meet with me today.